Graders, Mrs. Heath here again. We are going to be talking about bar and circle graphs in lesson 5.9, but I want to make sure we're ready to go before we start. So again, please make sure you're sitting in a comfortable place. You're tuning in. You have your notebook and pencil ready to go so that you can take or write down anything you want to. While you're doing this, some notes would be good. Questions you have at the end that you can maybe go back and ask yourself or ask me when you get to class. So let's get started. Our objective is to review the properties and construction of bar graphs and just to discuss the properties of circle graphs. We're not actually going to construct circle graphs, but we will look at bar graphs. So as you can see right here, I have two graphs. I have a bar graph on my left, which talks about the tomatoes and the zucchini, cucumbers, potatoes, and squash. And then on my right over here, I have tomatoes, zucchini, squash, potatoes, and cucumbers again. They're just laid out differently. So as I can see when I look at a bar graph, and I sometimes like bar graphs because I like to be able to have that visual. So if I were looking at tomatoes, I would say, when I see it, it's 60, 65. But now look at over here. It's 32%. But again, we're talking about number of bushels versus the percent out of 100. So there's the difference right here. Zucchini, if I look at that 50 bushels, okay, and that takes up about 25%. Cucumbers, I would say about 43, 44. What does it say over here? If I look, it's 22%, but again, we're talking bushels. And they made it a percent. Also, we have potatoes, and that's 30 bushels, or 14%. And our squash is, I would say, between 13 and 15 bushels, and again, 7%. Now, the difference here is that we are talking on our bar graph the number of bushels they harvest, and over here, we made them into percents. And how did we do that? Well, what we did is we took our numbers. So if I had, let's say, I'm going to do an example here. If I had 60, let's say 5 over 100, okay, that would equal, that, again, 65 over 100. But again, I need my total number here to add up, okay, and that would tell me how many bushels in all, okay. So if I see 65 over 100, I think of 65%. That's not accurate. So in this case, we're not going to do it like that, okay? But what we did is we converted, okay? Because this is out of an entire 100%. So 60 out of, well, and you did, like I said, you would add them all up. And this isn't out of 100 because I can tell. Do you know why I can tell? Because I know 65 and 50, I'm already at like 105. Okay, so that would be why it's out of a bigger number. And then I'm at another 45. So if I started to add up my numbers, like 65, 50, 45. So I know already. And that's why when I did this, I wanted you to see that this is not out of 100 because that does not correlate to that. Okay, because we need to know our total in order to figure out what the 65 is out of, because that then would give us the 32%. Okay, and these are just 3 of the numbers. I'd still have to add in my 30 for my potatoes and my about 13. So here alone, I'm at 43. Okay, and then if I added these, I'm at 10. Carry my 1. That's 7 and 5 is 12. 13, 14, 15, 16, so about 160. So I bet I'm close to 200, and I bet that's what they're taking it out of. So that, again, splits 65 right in half at about 32.5. So if rounded, it'd be 32%. Perfect. So let's move on to our next slide, which is right here. Parts of a bar graph. So here is, when you're making a bar graph, these are the things that must be a part of it. A bar graph must have these parts. A title that describes what is being graphed. So if I am talking about animals, farm animals, fruit, whatever, at the top, you need to make sure you label that bar graph. Because when you don't, you get one wrong. And that's really, really important. So label it. Wow, Mrs. Heath is having a bad time today. Look at her mess. Woofda. she needs to make sure she gets this down better. She's having issues with writing today. So she really needs to work on that. So we're going to try writing label again. L, A, B, ooh, I'm too close. B, and L. A little better, not great. A list of the groups or categories for which the bars are being drawn. So for instance, if I am creating a bar graph up here, I need my categories down here. That could be types of fruit, like bananas, apples, oranges, whatever. And then I need a number scale right here, my number scale. It's going to go here, and this is my number scale because I need to know what I'm measuring, okay? The scale is used to draw bars of lengths that show the amount of data in each group or category. The scale is usually labeled, and it is labeled, okay? So each side needs to be labeled again, and then my title. Oh, yikes. My title at the top. T-I-T-L-E, title. So there you go. So that's the other things that you really need to remember when you're working with a bar graph. And then finally, when I look here, make and label a bar graph of the class data showing results. So first of all, fifth graders, what I really wanted to do here is I really want us to just label this. So let's call this fruit. Sorry, let's call this fruits. Okay, oops, excuse me, I'm making a mess here. Let's erase that. Hear my dog in the background? He's thinking he's really tough. Okay, so we're going to call this fruit. And there we go. And I'm going to label my fruits along the bottom. So on this line, I'm going to write orange. And I have to turn my pen kind of because when you don't have a lot of room, you got to kind of, ooh. Ugh. Okay, again, I got to erase, sorry. This is really messy, but I gotta get rid of that. Okay, let's do something little like kiwi. Okay, so let's write kiwi right here. K-I-W-I. Hold on 1 second, fifth graders. Okay, so kiwi, and then if I go over here, and I know it's kind of a mess, and I apologize because it's really hard to write along here. So I think I'm just gonna write apple. Ugh. Okay, guys and girls, Mrs. Heath is just really struggling here with her mess. So let's get an eraser here and let's erase. Okay, so anyways, what I want to show you is along the side then, I would start at 0. Now you can go by any increment you want. I mean, you could go by 5s, 10s, and in this case, I think I would do 5. And I might skip a couple lines and do 10, and then do 15, and do 20. Now, if I had a bigger number than I needed though, I might not go by 5s. I might actually go by 10s. Just because if I had to reach a higher number, I would run out of room here. So, and on this, the reason I'm spacing it is only because it's so close together. So I want to skip one in between. So, oops, and I need 35, not 40. I was jumping ahead of myself. Okay, so then along the bottom, you would just randomly write your topics, so, and then maybe I just want to do one, and for this, maybe it's easier if I just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. Okay, so then if I'm graphing, let's say number 1 had 12. So up here, I'm going to go like this, and I'm going to make my line. And yeah, this doesn't look really great, but okay. And then I'm going to switch up my color just so we can see the difference. And I'm going to kind of color it in there like that. So as you can see, each of these, and then let's say number 2 was, let's say it was 25. So let's draw our line. Woo! All the way up to 25. And down. And I apologize, my writing and my straight lines are not very good. But again, you can get the gist of how you make them. And we're going to do some practice in class with actually making and creating some bar graphs. And you really want them straight, and using a ruler isn't such a bad idea either. So I hope that that makes sense to you. So we've created a bar graph. Remember, the very important thing that you need to remember is you have to have a title. If you don't, you're going to get it wrong. You have to have your information along the left. Usually that's your number scale. And on the bottom, now I used numbers only because my writing was so bad, but normally that is your categories. And in this case, it would be the kinds of fruit, apples, oranges, grapes, etc. Okay, so let's go back and talk about our review. So a title, it must have a title, it has to have a category, and it has to have a number line scale. Okay, and then the bars, obviously. Okay, so let's go back and see if we met our objective to review the properties and construction of bar graphs and discuss the property of a circle graph. And we did do that. We talked a little bit about circle graphs. Again, remember a circle graph. We're talking more about percent out of 100 versus making our bar graph, because our bar graph isn't out of 100 as we saw. So just remember, there's a difference between them, and they look different. One's measuring the percent, one's measuring numbers. So thanks, 6th graders. You did a great job with bar and circle graphs.